So I think right now we're in the stage of where smoking was safe, considered by doctors and medical professionals. I think we're in the same position with chemtrails. There's awareness, they're talking about it. The information is out there. I just think we're in the same stage of when smoking where, hey, it's okay to smoke. You can even smoke when you're pregnant. Doctor's #1 recommended cigarette are Camels. You know, I think we're in that stage of life with chemtrails. People are waking up to it. They're aware of it. No one wants to breathe in chemicals. No one wants to, wake up groggy and in a bad mood. We want to see the sun. We want to see blue skies. We want to have healthy crops. We want to have healthy drinking water, breathable air. They could be shown the information. They can be told point blank what they're doing, what's going on. At the end of the day, they still have to go to work. They still have to get up bright and early, sit in traffic, earn that paycheck to pay their bills.
We really need to come together to address this because there are powerful forces that are promoting this. There have been some attempts, but it's so easy to be defeated, right? Like states that are trying to prohibit it by law. The only problem is that the states don't control the airspace.
House Bill 2063 passed in 2024 prohibits weather modification, geoengineering, aerosol dispersion of chemicals, chemical compounds into the atmosphere. Carried a small fine with Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, but we knew we had to do more. And so this year we took step 2 with that with House Bill 1112. I termed it as a pathway to prosecution. And our governor in Tennessee worked hard against it. He worked against it in the Senate. He and his team did. I think this is a hot issue in Tennessee. I think it's a hot issue across the United States. I was so flattered, I guess is the word, taken, that something that a country boy in East Tennessee started with this prohibition. I think there are now 32 states that have taken an attempt at this. This has become a huge issue. Florida just passed a bill, and they took some things that we done, and we talked with folks in Florida, and they've done something better than what we did in Tennessee. And it's going to require the collective states to act that way to force a really sluggish federal government to move. Unfortunately, politicians in Tennessee, like the ones that didn't vote for this in the Senate, that offered lame excuses like, well, we don't want TDEC to have that responsibility. And I would say to that young senator, read your law and read the bill. Quit taking the easy way out and quit allowing a lobbyist or the governor's office to tell you how to vote, and listen to your constituents. Because I can assure you that the constituents in the state of Tennessee want us to do something about this. These weak people like Bill Lee need to wake up and they need to listen to their people. We're trying to take care of those folks that are traveling up and down this road, those kids that will be on Watts Bar Lake here behind me this summer. And it's as if these politicians either don't care or somebody's telling them what to think. Some other high-paid lobbyist who has a financial interest in controlling Tennesseans and Americans, and they cave to that. Shame on them. Get out of politics if you don't have the guts to stand up, get in this fight. I'm convinced this is one of the preeminent fights of our generation. Stop this evil.
When states ban weather modification, depending on the population density of an area, the state really doesn't have jurisdiction above 400 to 1,000 feet. Above that is federal airspace. And this is a federal program. I do think it's important that states ban it, though, because it brings it into the news and it makes it, a big deal and raises awareness, makes people understand this is a real thing. And again, if people want to know if this is a real thing, states have bills to ban it.
I think that all the states that are taking forth effort to ban it gets the conversation going. But I need to hear something come from the federal government. Because of how fast states have discussed weather modification, have implemented bills that are still going through the channel to ban this, again, it's raising awareness. But there are things that we did throughout history that we were able to ban and move away from once we realized the health and environmental issues. Spraying DDT on children, putting asbestos in our homes as a fire retardant. There are things that we have engineered out of society once we realize the harm So this is why we have to focus on not politicizing who, why. Even if you don't think it's happening, would you get behind stopping it? Because once you understand the hazards of ingesting, inhaling, and the contact hazard and the synergistic toxicity of it coming from you in so many which ways, let's have the discussion.
We have to take some serious action to solve this problem. And the first step, which I think is the goal of this film, is to increase the awareness. Because if your average citizen knew the truth of what's going on and what they're being exposed to without their consent, they would be outraged and they would take action.
I was living at the time in Fresno, and I had just had my son. So I had gone from a 9 to 5, you're running around and working all day and never really observing the world around you. And it was after having my son, and suddenly I was a stay-at-home homemaker, and we were on the lawn all day or outside exploring. And that was the first time I was able to observe a clear sky in the morning with then grid patterns that would stretch out throughout the day. And then they would expand. And by 4 or 5 p.m., there was no sunshine. It was just muted out. And I observed this for a while. And then I finally was so disturbed by it, I brought it up while grocery shopping, talked to a cashier. And I said, do you notice the lines in the sky? Do you notice how it just spreads out? And she said, yeah, those are chemtrails. That was my very first experience ever observing and then also hearing the term chemtrails. So that was the beginning of this journey for me. I went home and searched for the term. I tried to bring it up on social media. People shot me down like I was crazy. So that was my first introduction, but I didn't really get passionate or active with regard to exposing it until many years later. After experiencing what I did during 2020 and seeing how we were being lied to, fear-mongered, abused essentially, and I knew how bad the lies were at that time. That was the first time I really opened myself up to the possibility that this whole chemtrail theory might actually have some weight. I began tracking aircraft out of curiosity for many reasons, but I was self-taught on an app called Flight Radar 24 because I was curious about who was overhead. I use Flight Radar 24 to identify the aircraft. I take the registration number from Flight Radar, and then I go to the FAA's website, and you can look up the unique registration number. And there, they'll tell you all the details of the aircraft, and they'll tell you the registered owner of the aircraft. That is priceless. And from there, you have to try to figure out, is that company online? Because there's no phone numbers on the FAA registration, just the name of the company and address. I didn't get very outspoken about this until a few years after Convid, I call it. And it was actually when I moved to the mountains where I am today. And I had decided to get away from the city. I was ready to grow my own food, or at least attempt. I'd not had a real garden before. And I wanted to raise my own chickens and because I knew my food was more and more bioengineered. I knew that we were in an environment where they were trying to poison us, I felt. And so I then was out in the garden building for the first time planter boxes. We had to put a fence around for the deer. And of course, I'm outside long hours. And in these skies out here is where I was realizing they're still here. We are being pelted. My son is being stolen. I became so frustrated that I decided I'm done not talking about it, because I was heavily ostracized while talking about it, attempting to talk about it. And I decided at this point, I've had enough.
I think with all conspiracies, there are stages that we go through. First is deny it. Second is to attack it. Third is to accept it. First, they deny it. They just don't even entertain it at all. They just won't bring it up. They won't talk about it. You'll never hear about it. It'll just be a thing that people like us talk about. It'll never be acknowledged. Once people start waking up a little bit to it, I think that's when they attack it. That's the stage 2, right? Is they start attacking it. And they try to make people look stupid for thinking that way. Right? They'll turn all your friends against you. They'll do the whole tinfoil hat thing, call you names, all that shit, right? And then when that doesn't work and enough people wake up, now they have to accept it. Meaning, okay, now we have to tell the truth, but we'll just make up another lie with it. So we'll say it's just to block the sun. people are so dumb they'll believe anything. So we'll just make up a new lie, and then we'll just tell that lie. I mean, it took them this long to figure this out, so we'll just tell another lie, right? So we'll just tell them, okay, well, we're doing it, but it's only for this reason. And most people are like, oh, okay.
If you think about it, it's harming people on all kinds of different levels. Mentally, physically, spiritually. I want to come outside and enjoy the sunshine. You know, I don't want to have a cloudy, murky day. I want to see the sun. Psychologically, what that does, someone wakes up, they've been spraying all night, they come out, they're getting ready for the day, it's gloomy, there's no sun. You know, during the summer, everyone's happy, excited, they're by the pool, they're at the beach, everyone's in a good mood, it's summertime. Nothing more pisses me off, and I look up and I see a chemtrail going across, flying across the sun, blocking out my view, blocking out the sun. It pisses me off.
I never learned about that in school. I specifically remember, because it was interesting to me, I remember learning about clouds. And I remember having to draw them. Like I had to go home, that was my homework. Like cumulonimbus cloud and, you know, like what a thundercloud was. Or a cirrus cloud, right? Now, every once in a while, we'll get normal clouds. I can tell what a normal cloud looks like because, I mean, I've looked at them my entire life. But it seems like maybe the last decade or so, it's like that's all I see now. You know what I mean? Like it's very rare that I'll look up and think it's a normal sky. And when I do, I take it all in, you know what I mean? Because it literally brings me to tears almost sometimes because I miss the blue sky. The sky now, like I'm looking out my window in the back and it's like there's always this white hazy layer over it where it's not blue. I remember laying on my dark green grass when I was a kid. And it felt good, you know, laying there as a kid and I remember looking up at the sky all the time and it was just like blue, like a crayon blue. I don't see that anymore.
I don't remember the last time I really saw a true royal blue sky like I used to see when I was a kid. I remember what that was like to see that. But, you know, unfortunately, that was only when I was 6 or 7 I started seeing that. And the kids now have no idea what a real sky looks like.
If you start to read about geoengineering and weather modification and the history, you find yourself looking up to the sky a little bit more. The more I looked into this, the more convinced I became that there's some evil taking place, to be honest with you. And evil from two perspectives, really. First, from the perspective of what's moral and right. To put chemicals in the atmosphere that are going to find themselves into our breathing air, into our water, into our soil, our food supply is unacceptable. From a constitutional perspective, it's unacceptable and it's immoral and it's illegal from a constitutional perspective because we, the people, have not consented to being test subjects.
I found that most people that I would talk to about it felt like there was something going on, but they didn't ever want to talk about it publicly because they didn't want to be ostracized or called the crazy person. So I volunteered to be the crazy person and to start putting it on the table. And I really wanted other people in California to start documenting and observing right along with me. People who were curious about the skies to come together in our state to look for patterns, to document, to take pictures, and to see if we could notice any trends in the state. So I continued tracking flights, and with this amazing group of people, I learned about the NOAA Library, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And they have a weather modification library where you can find all of the non-federal weather modification projects. So these are the smaller operations, the snowpack enhancement, the precipitation enhancement. Come to find out, there was a over 30-year-old project happening right over my head. And it was being funded, paid for by 2 irrigation districts to the southwest of us, the Modesto and the Turlock Irrigation District, also known as TID. They call it Turlock Irrigation District. And I then learned The company that they were paying was called Weather Modification International, or LLC, or Inc. They use all three.
Weather Modification Incorporated, which is a company that services most of the planet. They actually hold most of the contracts in the NOAA library. The NOAA library has every disclosed contract in the country, and there are thousands active contracts.
I realized that all of my documenting, all of the times I thought there was something going on in the sky, there it was confirmed.
The vast majority of weather modification, I believe, is conducted by military. But we have thousands of contracts with private companies like Weather Modification Incorporated. Anyway, if you go to their website, they offer loan programs for planes and they have job opportunities. And my favorite job opportunity is when they're requesting pilots. One of the qualifications is that they have the capability to be extremely discreet. They must have the ability to maintain secrecy and be discreet. That's in the open listing.
What really convinced me that this is absolutely going on was when I first found a report from the National Institutes of Occupational Safety and Health where they were actually reviewing a company that does this, MK Ballistics, in 2004. What I found was if I go onto a search engine on the internet and put in the search term cloud seeding companies, it returns pages and pages of small companies with aircraft that disperse various cloud seeding chemicals. And their websites, if you look at them, they're actually, boasting about this, like that they do it better than other companies and such. And that's when I knew, for sure that this is a factual phenomenon. Now, if we go back to that particular report from NIOSH about MK Ballistics, what they're doing is manufacturing these cloud flares, which are essentially like pyrotechnic devices like fireworks. And in the report, it outlined the specific ingredients that they use, and silver iodide was one. And they also divulged using strontium nitrate, which is a very important fact to note. It does have some toxicity, so it's very close to calcium on the periodic table, so it tends to interchange with calcium in the bone and get stored in the bone. And if there's exposure during child development, it can lead to abnormalities of the musculoskeletal system.
When children and pregnant women are exposed to metals, they absorb them like sponges. They're trying to take in metals for their bones. When children are growing and babies are developing, the materials don't just poof out of nowhere. They come from somewhere. Just like a plant grows out of the soil. A plant gets everything they need from their environment. They don't just poof out of existence. So when we're growing and, we're pregnant and we're growing someone else, our bodies are sucking in items from our food, from our air, from our skin, from everything in order to build. And unfortunately, what happens when you have metal contamination is that those metals confuse the body. Like, for instance, we shouldn't be exposed to this level of aluminum, this level of barium, or even cesium-137. I've seen reports of we're not supposed to be exposed to that. So what happens is a lot of these metals can get into the brain, screw up the whole blood-brain barrier, mess with your immunity, mess with your gut. I mean, the amount of damage that's done to just the ovaries before they even turn into a baby, or the sperm. I mean, every piece of life is being affected by these toxins. You can't mess with biology on a cellular level before it's even grown into an adult. You can't mess with that. We might not even have any clue as to what humanity is capable of, because the limits to what we're capable of have been brought down so low for the last several generations. I wonder what humanity was like 1,000 years ago.
in adults, it can be a contributing and possibly even a causal factor for osteoporosis. However, if we have certain salts of strontium, like strontium nitrate, which is in the cloud seed flares, according to that government report, that is a much, much more toxic substance. And what that substance does is that it reacts with the hemoglobin, the oxygenated hemoglobin in your body, and that's in your red blood cells, which carries the oxygen from your lungs to your organs. It reacts with that and results in two things. One is it creates hydrogen peroxide, which is a highly reactive chemical that will cause oxidative damage. And the second thing is even more problematic, that it oxidizes or reduces the iron to methemoglobin, and a +3 state of iron, and gives the condition methemoglobinemia, which is a rare condition only really caused by poisoning with various substances. And in that condition, the blood cannot bind oxygen. You can tell based on the acute toxicity that it probably would not be good. I definitely encourage people to use their mind in combination with what they're doing. It's very, very difficult to know exactly what the consequences of these exposures are.
You can go and find out that there are patents on all of this stuff. Why? Why would there be a patent if somebody wasn't going to pursue that? You don't just make patents to make patents. You make patents to protect it so you can hide the technology from people and control it.
In 1891, they began producing rainfall. In the early 1900s, they started producing artificial fog. It's revelation of method. They're telling us what they're doing. It's one of the laws of the universe. Unfortunately, the general public aren't privy to the laws of the universe, but one of the laws of the universe is revelation method. They have to tell you what they're doing before they do it, okay? It's kind of like, here's a poison apple. I'm going to sell you this poison apple. It's poison. You eat it. It's off me. The blood's off my hands. However, if I sell you a poison apple and don't tell you it's poison, that's on me. Your blood is on my hands. So it's basic revelation of method, less for magic. So these patents they're putting out there, they're telling us what they're doing. And, silence is consent. They know no one's going to go to .org, .gov website, these certain government websites and check for patents. They know they're not going to do it. They're distracted with news and sports and government and religion and all the other viruses in this world.
There are an enormous amount of patents that talk about every single aspect of all of this. The problem is there are patents for things that don't even exist yet. There are patents for things that are so out of this world that no one would ever think that they're real. There are patents for literally every part of this and things that you probably don't ever want to read because they're so terrifying.
When you see that these concepts have been patented, you have to ask, why would we monetize this? What type of evil brings that on? I think it's that same evil that wants us to live in a perpetual state of war so that the defense contractors can get wealthy. And it's that same evil that would do whatever they're trying to do to our atmosphere to hold you and I yielded under their thumb so they can extract our authority. Our Tennessee Constitution says all power rests in the people.
I think people are they're not lazy, they're conditioned to not ask questions. Why would there be a patent for subliminal acoustic manipulation of the nervous system? I think it's bigger than what we even know. And I think that if we really knew, like if somebody was to come out and say, okay, here's what we're doing to you all, and here's all the reasons why, I think it's a lot.
I know that there are plenty of patents that have been approved for years on these different issues of weather modification. I'm not saying that every single patent that has been approved or even proposed, is being utilized, but I think many are. And it's the race to who has the better idea. It's there. It's openly admitted. Now ask yourself, why are people still denying it? Why did people obtain the patents? And some of these patents are 20 plus years old. So what has happened since then?